Hi, I am Captain Ehsan Khalid, a retired veteran Indian Air Force pilot, commercial pilot, and I have flown aircraft, trained people for last maybe 40 years. This is one of the very sad event on which I will be shedding lights as per what I think is correct to do. The event that happened, that is the aircraft accident on 12th of June, there was an AIB report that came out on 11th of July or 12th morning 11 at 1 o'clock. That went on to give out a lot of 15-page information, and based upon that there was another document that came out by the FAA, and that is called Continued Airworthiness Notifications to the International Community. It is addressed to all civil aviation authorities, and it is from FAA dated 11th July. I will read out two sentences. On July 11th, 2025, the AAIB issued their preliminary report indicating that the investigation to date has found no urgent safety concerns related to the engines or airplane system of Boeing model 787-800. So, two documents, one on the 11th, another on the 12th. They go on to make a conclusion that there was nothing technically wrong with Boeing 787 aircraft. With this document in public, there are a lot of questions, there are a lot of insinuations, and there is a lot of smear campaign going on the pilot who is no longer with us. However, the effort of everyone is to find the fact and make it almost impossible for a similar situation, similar events to occur. I would like to go back to 1990s when there was Boeing 737 aircraft, couple of accidents, not couple, maybe about 5 of the accidents in which Boeing 737-200 aircraft would roll, dive and kill the entire occupant. It happened for the Sahara Airlines in 1994. It happened for a couple of airlines, and every time it appeared to be pilot's error. Till such time, there was a pilot who came back alive from this and said that, look, I didn't do anything. The aircraft on its own would yaw, roll, dive, and it continued to dive, and then suddenly I tried to take it on, it won't recover, and then suddenly the aircraft recovered on its own. Now, there was a live pilot who was talking, and thereafter Boeing sat down on the drawing table and said, yes, there was a technical flaw with the rudder system, and the rudder system of all generation of aircraft thereafter changed. Come back to the later portion of Boeing 737 MAX. When the first aircraft went down, well, Boeing said nothing wrong. When the second aircraft went down, then we had, okay, hold. That was after 3 months, the second aircraft went down, and then we found there was a lot of problem with the aircraft, and at that time, that MCS system, which was not even known to the pilots at that point of time, was the one which was virtually taking the aircraft out of the hand of pilots and thereafter diving them and then killing them. Come back to 787. Is this the first incident when twin engine failure has happened of 787? No. In 2019, the first time in mid-air, the aircraft had twin engine failure. It was appropriated to fuel contamination. Good. Then the second aircraft had dual engine failure at Osaka airfield, in which aircraft landed, and thereafter both engines shut down simultaneously. Aircraft is stopped, the pilot and the engineers put together could not start the aircraft again. Then Boeing came up with a service bulletin that there is a component called TCMA. Till then it wasn't known a lot. It is something, when it gets wrong signals, it can shut both engines down. However, TCMA is active only on ground. Fine. But we did not know till then that TCMA is something that can do such a thing. Now we come to AIB report and our accident at Ahmedabad. The aircraft got airborne, and aircraft had fuel shut down, and then it crashed. The AIB report does not clarify anything other than absolutely the most important thing that they clarified was that at timestamp of 0839, that is 3 seconds after it got airborne, the air ground sensors transitioned from ground to air mode. That has been very conclusively single line put into that. Now, what is the implication of such a sentence in AIB report is that since they transitioned to air mode, TCMA could not be faulted for shutting the engine down. Agreed. But landing gear did not go up, and it will not go up for various reasons that hasn't been told. We do not know what was engine power before the aircraft fuel switch transitioned from run to off. Now, since we don't know the power before that, or the engine parameters before that, or engine message or the ICAS message, pilots, they don't look at the switches, they don't look at the engine switches as such, they look at the parameters. There are instruments, there are warning messages. So, we do not know what warning messages were available in the aircraft after V1. V1 is a speed, if we have a warning, we will shut down, we will stop the aircraft before that, but if anything comes in after that, we are committed to continue to take off as a pilot. So, we are not aware what happened after V1, was there a failure message available? But what we know is that 5 or 6 seconds after the takeoff, this fuel switch was transitioned from run to cutoff. Now, if there was an engine parameter which wasn't right, like there was a dual engine failure, then that is pilot's action. And they have carried out the drill, that's called the memory items. And it is not dependent upon height, speed. If you have a dual engine failure, you will do it to cut off and then you will do it to run position, okay, which seems to have been done. There might be a gap of 7, 8 seconds that I don't know, or it says about 10 seconds of time gap is there. But the fact remains, since we do not know that the fuel switches were actually moved or the fuel switch transitioned from on to off in its electrical position. So, the switch may remain physically at the same position, yet the electrical signal might make it go off, and it happens at our home very regularly. You are seated there, the bulb is on and there is a switch which is on. The only way that you can switch that bulb off is by putting the switch off. But we have all seen that the switch is on, the bulb is on, and then the bulb is flickering. Then what do? You go and switch it off. And thereafter you put it on again and it works okay. That's exactly what we do in the cockpit. The engine is not stable, it is not producing power. So, you would switch it off and thereafter you will switch it on again. Just that they did not have the time because it was so close to ground. While the aircraft was revving up, it would go and crash, and that is what happened. But at no stage do I see anything that hasn't been done or should not have been done in case of a dual engine failure. Therefore, it is very important to know what parameters were existing before the aircraft lifted off the ground and 3 seconds, 4 seconds thereafter, which we do not know. Then we have I fail to understand why the AIB report refers to an SAIB of FAA 2018, because that particular SAIB, it's an advisory. It is advisory based upon the reports that Boeing 737 aircraft fuel switches would malfunction because it has a locking switch. It is a locking switch, it has a spring and it has to be lifted up and then it has to be put into a particular position and it doesn't slip. So, there were some switches where the spring would not work fine and the switches can be moved without lifting up. That is all that advisory is saying, that please check it, and if there is a problem, you correct it. And it goes on to say that it has got no safety implications. If you are checking it, you are fine with it. But it is bizarre to think that two separate switches having two separate springs will fail and will fail at the same time in 1 second. This does not appear to be the right logic that was given to us. Okay. Now, the second thing is that why this particular advisory of FAA is not applicable to this particular aircraft or the entire aircraft of the world, because FAA issues an advisory, it is applicable to aircrafts of USA. It is for Boeing to now incorporate and tell their operators to operate it like this. They didn't go on to do it. Then Well, DGCA could have taken a guide on it and would have issued an advisory for all the operators under DGCA. That was also not done. So, Air India cannot be faulted for it, because Air India is not an addressee of an FAA advisory. And based upon FAA advisory, FAA is like DGCA. So, DGCA also issues 100 advisories. You think all the aircraft of USA will follow the DGCA advisory? Then why would we follow any other advisory unless it comes from the OEM? That did not come. Coming back to be it as it is, that the switch is in a rare case can malfunction, and in the rarest of the rare case both the switches malfunction. But we have a report, we have an AIB report where we have both the switches in the run position even after the crash. That means it has gone through the most strenuous crash scenario, yet it has not moved. That means the locking mechanism was not faulty. So, that particular AIB report or advisory report is absolutely infructuous to these two run switches, because they have not faulted. They have proved themselves in the most strenuous circumstances that I have not moved from the situation even during crash. So, how would it move during the takeoff? So, I do not know why and what is because that particular advisory is generally giving out a wrong idea to people that if this advisory is not followed, then the switches can move on its own, which is not the right conclusion out of this particular AD. Now, coming back to the question of the pilots talking, did you switch off or did you not switch off? As I said that if there is a dual engine failure, pilots will do the checklist, and they will do the checklist in exactly the same manner, and he will ask, did you switch off? He said, I did not do so. Then he said, do it, and they did it, and it was relighting. So, why would we talk about that? Since these two questions were asked, that means the pilot did not know what to do. Now, come back to the question that the harshest of the harshest statements that we see, especially on the foreign media, and some of the Indian pilots also talking about it. I do not know why they talk about it, because we do not have the full information. Until such time we do not have the full information, I would not like to say that two professionally trained pilots went ahead and decided to crash. But it has been said by none other than BBC also. Let us look at it like this. The pilot flying was the younger of the pilot, Kundar. He was on the right seat and he was flying the aircraft. Aircraft rolled for the takeoff, and let us for a moment, okay, with abundant caution, I presume, okay, I say that there was this pilot Sabharwal who wanted to probably kill the switch. So, as the aircraft got airborne, the switches were moved to cutoff position, and the aircraft was thereafter whatever was said was happened. The Kundar was on aircraft controls and he was flying and looking out. The workload would have suddenly increased so much that he would not have even a fraction of attention to look at the position of switches. You have to understand that pilots are not trained to handle malfunction by looking at the switches position. They are trained to react to the CAS messages, warning messages, and various messages and lights that light up in the cockpit. And so, the first attention in case of an engine failure or loss of thrust will go on your CAS message, where it will say left engine failed, right engine failed, dual engine failure, all electric failure, RAT deployed, hydraulic, 50 such messages will be there. With the kind of experience that Kundar had, not even in half an hour will he find out whether the switch was in on position or off position. So, if that is in case it was deliberately done by the pilot flying would not know and he will die as if he had a dual engine failure. In this case, that was not the case. Okay. The second case that the pilot flying Kundar wanted to probably kill the engine and he went and to do it. Sabharwal was seated and he could have looked at it and he would have prevented it physically. We do not know what was the discussion, what was the talking going on in the cockpit. Definitely for those 40-45 seconds, there were not just 2 sentences talked, there must have been 20 sentences talked, and unless we hear that those 20 sentences in exact word and tone that it was spoken, we can come to no conclusion whatsoever. So, I expect that the AIB, which is the supreme authority and we respect because all the safety, remember there are 500,000 people who are flying on 787 daily. 1,200 aircraft flies all across the world. So 500,000 people trust us and trust the AIB to find the fact. So now I want to tell the AIB through this particular platform is that they should immediately send out a letter to FAA and said, hold, we have not given you a clean chit. The technical investigation is on. We have not told you that there is no problem, because if there is no technical problem, then there can be only a human problem. So if there is a human problem, then why would you try to find out what went wrong? Okay. So I think where we are right now is not the right place to be in, and government, aviation authorities should really steer this away from where it is. Yes, if you release the entire transcript of what the discussion was between the pilots, okay, maybe you are right, maybe BBC is right, maybe they are not. It would be clear. But in this darkness, because the next report will come not after 1 month, not after 2 months, but maybe after 12 months, maybe after 2 years, who knows. By then, the closure for the people who lost their life would not have happened, and most importantly, 500,000 people daily would be flying while we do not know exactly what has happened. So that is the urgency with which we should deal with this particular situation, and I hope the closure is there, and I hope that we find the real reason for this accident, and such an accident does not occur ever again. Because the whole purpose of any investigation is to prevent next occurrence. Based upon this, we will have new SOPs, we will have new guidelines, we will have new rules, and thereafter the aviation will become safer. With this, I leave everyone to their own conclusions, but trust me, we need to know more before concluding anything, and what has been concluded by the FAA for the international operators is not really right.